Hey everybody, Ross Kluver here with CCMMagazine.com and FamilyFiction.com, and we're at the red carpet event for the WingFeather Saga TV series, and we're speaking with the musical composer, director, Kurt Heinecke.
Yes,
Did I get that
you got
right?
that right. Good job.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
And you have been involved in music pretty much most of your life, right?
Yes, I was with Veggie Tales 30 years ago, and it started as their director of music. Wrote Superbook, score for Superbook after that, CBN. Did Andrew Peterson's, Randall Goodgame's Slugs and Bugs, and now working on WingFeather.
So has that been a passion of yours, is really working more with these types of things, soundtracks and musical scores for things like this, theatrical performances?
You know, the funny thing is, when I was growing up, I listened to Star Wars over and over and over in junior high. The first episode, when it first came out. Not thinking, oh, one day I'll get to score films and videos. But it's something that I've always dabbled in. And when I met Mike and Phil, Bob and Larry, I was working at a church, and that door opened, and I jumped in, and it's just become a growth process ever since. So it's always something I've loved to do. It was never something that I thought, oh, you know, in the future I hope to write for Talking Vegetables. But it's just been a wonderful journey.
So what is the biggest challenge when you're presented with a project like this that is a book,
mm-hmm.
and you've got to make it come to life along with the animation,
yes,
and the voiceover work?
Well,
that's a delicate balance, I imagine.
I think the challenge here is, normally as a composer, I'm the one person working on the job. Here we've got Andrew Peterson, a premier songwriter and singer who wrote the series, and then we put a team together. Ben Shive is his producer and a songwriter. The Arcadian Wild's an incredible band, and then myself. And so to have 5 or 6 musicians sitting together and saying, okay, what are we going to do with this? It was a fun challenge, but I think it brings a richness to this also, because it's really Arcadian Wild that gives you the sound. When you think, after you've heard the series and you hear, oh, that mandolin and guitar and fiddle, that's Arcadian Wild. But then to say, okay, let's fit it into a film now. Oh, here's an ominous section. Okay, then I start writing underneath what they've written and bring some depth to it, bring some cinematic sound to it. And so it's been a real fun collaboration to see how that works.
That is amazing. It makes me think of, if you're a fan of a band or something like that, and then you see, like, I don't know if you're aware of They Might Be Giants.
Mm-hmm.
They apparently do a bunch of like kids soundtrack stuff for like Saturday morning shows under a completely different name, and I didn't know that. I mean, they were a band I listened to in college.
Okay.
So, do you have an ear for that kind of thing? Like, do you recognize something like a voiceover work or a song that's underneath a TV series or something? Or
I really pay attention now to what's happening. And the big composers, the John Williams of the world, that over time I get this inspiration from a John Williams and get this inspiration from a Danny Elfman and this from a Hans Zimmer. And then, on each series, in this one, Andrew, a couple key words he came up with is, we're looking for happy, sad. It's got to be a mixture of happy, but there's this undercurrent of sadness too,
mm-hmm.
because of the world that they live in. So it's like, okay, what does that sound like? We talked about, we want this early European medieval sound, but it doesn't want to sound like Lord of the Rings, just another Lord of the Rings. So we talked about Scandinavian. It's a little colder, it's a little icier. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's those sorts of inspirations. You say, okay, as a composer, I need to take these words and translate them into what does that mean musically. So that's part of the fun challenge.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite soundtrack of all time?
Well, okay, probably the most influential besides Star Wars was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That was highly influential on me growing up as a kid. Listened to it over and over and over.
Last Temptation of Christ by Peter Gabriel. That's mine.
Oh, okay.
If you haven't heard it,
okay.
The actual soundtrack album that he did, not necessarily the movie. Sometimes there's two soundtracks, right?
I see what you're saying.
But yeah, check
okay,
that one out.
I'll
That
check
is
it
the
out.
best one I've ever heard. It's a little sacrilegious in a Christian setting.
We can cut that later.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
Do you know Becky, I'm thinking her last name, Tucker?
The name rings
She
a
used to
bell.
work at Veggie Tales for a long time.
Okay. There was a lot of us there.
Kevin and Becky. Okay.
I'm sure I'd recognize her. What area was she
She did
in?
a lot of the graphic design and animation type
Okay,
stuff.
cool.
So more like in front of the computer screen. But
Okay. Awesome.
good friends from church. My
Okay.
oldest daughter was their nanny for the first 2 or 3 years when they had their kids. So
Well, it's fun getting to speak with you all because
Yeah.
I remember in high school getting CCM and looking in the back, seeing if my favorite band, Glad at the time, would ever be appearing in Alabama, and they never did. They were always in Pennsylvania. But yeah, and then just reading it through, working at church and everything. So, yeah, good
Thank
deal.
you.